17.2 was released last night. So we've got some great ways for you to warm up and prepare for that workout. So workout is walking dumbbell lunges, toes to bar, alternated with bar muscle ups, and then dumbbell cleans. So we got a few things. First that we kind of want to touch on, make sure that you're really watching for in order to help avoid injuring yourself. So first thing we're going to talk about is going to be lunges. Really big with that, especially since you're holding that in that front rack position, that torso doesn't fall forward when you're coming down into that position. Very good. So making sure that that core and trunk stays nice and upright. Also, when you're striking down, make sure you land on your heel. That's where you're going to get your power position from. Instead of loading onto your toes and having your knee come forward off your toes, putting risk at, for injury onto that knee. Also, since you do have to go all the way down into a knee touch, very good, making sure that you're not letting the body collapse, and then having to bring yourself back up, keeping control all the way down and all the way up will definitely decrease that risk of injury. Next thing you're gonna have to go into is gonna be a toes to bar. So with that, really being aware that you're not letting that low back arch down too much, exactly. Keeping that trunk upright again, core stays tight. We're gonna work a little bit on hamstring flexibility through that. Also, in the last 2 rounds when we're talking about that bar muscle up, really being aware of that chicken wing. I know you're gonna be tempted in order to get those reps, but when we're doing that, we're putting a lot of risk onto that anterior shoulder right there. So just really making sure that that guy stays pulled back and you're really just working on your pierce. Last movement to be really cautious about, like you guys felt in 17.1, those dumbbells are a lot lower to the ground than what you're used to with a barbell or a kettlebell. So with that, we saw a ton of rounding and a ton of low back pain. So exactly, going down to the ground, just trying to pick up those guys. Really make sure, keeping neutral spine, hinging at the hips, not at that back point. Exactly, and if you need to, bending the knees a little bit more to get lower. Definitely. So those are just some really helpful cues in order to help you through those movements, just to decrease that risk of injury. Now we're going to go on and show you a couple different ways that you can warm up for that. First thing we're going to do is going to be a glute bridge march. This is really going to help with glute activation, hip stabilization, and core activation, really for all those movements you're going to be going into. So first thing you're going to do is drive through your heels, bring your hips up, squeezing your glutes, making sure you're not pushing through your back here. Nice. Bracing on one of your heels, you're going to bring one of your feet up. Very good. Hold that for a second and then alternate legs. Going for about 10 of these, 10 to 20. Really making sure, good, that you're not rotating through that pelvis there, dropping those hips down, or feeling anything in the hamstrings or into the low back. Great, next thing we're gonna go into is a kneeling psoas stretch. So with this, kind of similar to a couch stretch, however, it's gonna be more focused and isolated within that hip flexor. So with this, really make sure you're scooping that pelvis under, squeezing that glute, and really exposing that front of that hip flexor, especially that iliopsoas. Remember, if you're going into any extension or arching that low back there, you're really going to be losing that stretch. Exactly. So, good. Go ahead, reach that same arm up. If you want any extra stretch, you can squeeze your glutes a little bit more, shift forward, or even lean a little bit to the side there. Great. Holding that for about 30 to 45 seconds each side. Awesome. Next we're going to go into is going to be a scap inchworm. So this one, we're going to do a couple of different things through this. Hamstring length, serratus movement, shoulder stability, as well as that planking into a core. So you're going to start in a standing position, feet just right underneath your hips. You're going to walk your hands out away from you. Good. Back stays flat, a little bit of an isometric hamstring stretch. Everything all flat through the spine. Hold that plank. Very good. Then what you're going to do is you're going to hug your shoulder blades around your ribs, punching yourself up and then sinking yourself down. Very good. See how our spine stays perfectly straight through here? Only thing moving is going to be those shoulder blades hugging around her rib cage. Great. You're going to do 5 of those little push-ups, and then you're going to bring either your hands back to your feet or your feet to your hands, whichever you feel most comfortable doing. You can either do these in place or you can do them walking. Last thing we're going to do is an anterior shoulder stretch. This one's just going to help open up your shoulders a little bit. So you can either do is holding onto a rig, just pulling your hand, or holding onto a corner. But what you're going to do is you're going to pull one hand away, stretching and opening through that front of that shoulder. So this one's going to be really important, just any mobilization through the shoulder there. You should feel a nice stretch through the front of that shoulder. If you want to make this any more intense, you can bring your ear to your shoulder, very good, or bring your chin to your chest. Excellent, good. Holding that for about 20-30 seconds, doing about once or twice on each side. Very good. That'll definitely help us open up that chest and get those shoulders moving a little bit better. That is it for 17.2. Best of luck out there, you guys. Have fun, most importantly. We already have some great things put together for recovery, so be sure to look out for that video to come out on Monday.